Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another edition of Saint of the Day. I'm in a quandary today. There's so many wonderful female saints this week. I just don't want to do just one saint of the day, but we'll see how much time we have. So we have three terrific female saints. Today is the feast day of Saint Gertrude the Great, Saint Margaret of Scotland, and then tomorrow is feast day for Saint Elizabeth of Hungary. Just three tremendous gifts to the church. I'd like to at least touch on St. Gertrude and see if we can't get to St. Margaret without taking too much time. So without further ado, St. Gertrude the Great is a 13th century Benedictine nun and a mystic. The story with her is that at a very, very young age, at 5, she has dropped off at a monastery, a Benedictine monastery. We don't ultimately know what the story behind it is. It appears that possibly her parents, who were very, very pious and devout Catholics, had prayed to God for the gift of children, and if He blessed them with the gift of children, they would give their firstborn to the church. The other thought is, as well, is that perhaps she was an orphan who was dropped off at a monastery. So at a very, very early age, at 5, she finds herself in a monastery and is given a wonderful education. As we know, this early in history, all books were either with the nobility in their castles or in monasteries. This is the great intellectual tradition that we've come to know and understand in the Catholic faith, which eventually leads to the university system and so forth. So she grows up reading scripture. She grows up reading the church fathers. She's very well versed. At the age of 25, she begins to have a series of, actually for the rest of her life, mystical visions of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. So she starts to write down all these visions so that she can share them with the sisters in the monastery. So she's kind of really well known for her writings. She wrote very, very eloquently in Latin as well as other languages. So she specifically, fosters this idea of a nuptial mysticism, which is basically just said, that she is a bride of Christ. To be able to envision yourself as the bride of Christ and putting yourself as the bride of Christ throughout Scripture, and understanding His Sacred Heart, that beneficial to try to be that the bride of Christ and getting close to His heart, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So she continues to develop this theology. And then specifically starts working on mysticism towards understanding the Sacred Heart of Jesus and kind of what that means. So as a bride of the Christ, understanding his human heart as well as his heavenly heart, and how to relate to it, what it teaches us. So she spends a lot of time there. So she really develops the idea between the Sacred Heart of Jesus and envisioning the Sacred Heart of Jesus pumping on the cross as He's being crucified, pumping the blood out of His wound into His church, and becoming the sacraments in the blood and water that we know through the sacramental graces through God. So that's really what St. Gertrude gave to us, is these tremendous writings on our spiritual visions of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. The other person that I'd like to just briefly touch upon is St. Margaret of Scotland. So St. Margaret is an 11th century saint. So she is born into nobility. Her nobility actually in Hungary. They come back to England, and due to some wars, her noble family is forced to escape persecution, and she finds herself up in and around Scotland. The King of Scotland gives them refuge, and eventually the King of Scotland falls in love with Margaret. Margaret is a very humble, kind, quiet woman. And now again, she is given this opportunity to really, really study. She becomes very well versed in Scripture, but she leads a very austere life of simplicity. So here she is, a queen, but lives her life in tremendous simplicity. So much so that the way she lives her life really starts to affect her husband, the king. And they start to give away lots of their goods. So as they go through difficult times with floods or disease, she leads her husband out to care for others. So it really shapes the way he runs the country. So just a wonderful example of it doesn't matter what state in life we find ourselves, we can always look after the poor. We can always take care of, we can always become the hands and feet of Jesus. So these two wonderful saints really show us again, so that when we concentrate on the Sacred Heart of Jesus, his love, how it changes our lives, how we begin to just want to look for opportunities to care for others, right? Who the two most important commandments of the law: to love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and to love your neighbor as yourself. That begins, as they show us, with a dedicated prayer life, to know who Jesus is, to know his Sacred Heart, so that we can become his hands and feet and change the world. And she shaped the whole country by her kindness, by her love and care for others, because she knew Jesus Christ. So if you have an opportunity today, I would suggest that you go and Google St. Gertrude the Great, 13th century mystic nun, St. Margaret of Scotland, and St. Elizabeth of Hungary. Wonderful examples of putting Jesus first and foremost in your life, and how it changes us and changes the world. So have a wonderful day. God bless you, and we'll speak to you next week. Take care.